بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So we continue our study of history of Shia Islam in the 4th and 5th centuries. Last week we talked about Adarasa Idrisiyun and their governance in northwest Africa. Today we talk about Alaviyun. Maybe you can translate as Alavids, but you have to be careful. This is not necessarily the same as Alavids that we have today. Even today we have Alavids in Syria, which are different from Alavids in Turkey. So this term can be used in different senses. So what we want to discuss now is Alavids or Alaviyun from 250 after Hijrah till 316. So basically many of progeny of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, they were very harshly and unjustly treated during Umayyads and Abbasids for the most part. Especially in the 2nd century, they were very badly treated. This led to their migration. So they had to go far in order to be able to survive and continue practicing. One of the areas that they went and settled was called Tabaristan, northern Iran, under Caspian Sea. Today is mostly the province of Mazandaran in Iran. In Iran, there are 2 provinces under Caspian Sea. One is Gilan, one is Mazandaran. So this Tabaristan, we have ulama also from Tabaristan that are called Tabarsi, for example. Although some of them might be from Tafresh, but some of them are from Tabaristan. So this Tabaristan became a hub for some Shia and Zaydids in particular. And therefore, in the year 250 after Hijrah, Alaviyun, who were mainly Zaydis from Zayd ibn Ali ibn al-Husayn, they formed a government there. And people who were also tired of the mistreatment of Tahiriyun, that is another governance, they were very much welcoming formation of a new governance. So they gave bay'ah to a person called Hasan ibn Zayd, whose title was Da'i Kabir. Da'i, like we say, Da'iyan ilallah, from da'wah. So they called him Da'i Kabir, means, for example, great caller or inviter. Hasan ibn Zayd established this governance, and then after him Muhammad ibn Zayd continued. When Mutawakkil, Abbasid Caliph, destroyed the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala, this Hasan ibn Zayd was the first person who tried to restore. So from northern Iran, from Tabaristan, they tried to restore the grave in Karbala. After he was killed, the governance was taken over by Samanians, that we will talk about them later a little bit. And therefore, they went into decline till Hasan ibn Ali Utrush, whose title was Nasir Kabir. Nasir means helper, great helper. He managed again to revive governance of Alaviyun. And he was very capable person, and it is said that he was very active in cultural affairs, in training students, in tabligh. So he was very much, multi-dimensional person. For further study, there is a box here about Tabaristan. Tabaristan is a place that, because of lots of mountains and also good rain, is very green. And also because of mountains and forests, so it's not easy for people, especially outsiders, to move through. Therefore, when in the time of the caliphs they went to conquer Iran, they didn't manage to conquer Tabaristan. And also because Umayyads and Abbasids in the beginning also had no much control over Tabaristan, it became a place that their opponents went there. Whoever was not happy with Umayyads or Abbasids, they were going to Tabaristan. And also this is why Alaviyun also went there. And they made actually the people interested in Islam, and people embraced Islam through not army of the caliphs, rather through progeny of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Therefore, from the beginning, they had a tendency towards Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Samanian also is another thing that we can study here further. So, when in the second half of the 3rd century, because we said that Alaviyun started their government 250, is the middle of the 3rd century. So in the second half, means from establishment of Alavi government till end of the 3rd century. So there were Alavids in Tabaristan. Also, we have another movement in Sistan, eastern Iran, by Safarian, and therefore the Abbasi Caliph tried to establish a loyal governance in Iran that can control these areas and make sure that they don't become independent or they don't rebel against Khalifa, etc. Therefore, he appointed Nasr ibn Ahmad Samani, and he established the dynasty of Samanian. At that time, they had a special terminology. They used to call such governances Emarat Istikfa. means like a kind of independent kingdom or emirate, in the sense that because these people were capable and had large territory, so the Abbasid Khalifa was giving them some authority to rule in his name. They were in charge of army, they were in charge of, collecting tax, etc. But they had to mention the name of Khalifa in their khutbah, in their sermons, and they had to put the name of Khalifa on the coins and also send some money to the central government, to the Khalifa. So with certain conditions, they were somehow independent. So after Amir Nasr ibn Ahmad al-Samani, Khalifa gave the authority to his younger brother Ismail ibn Ahmad, and Samani dynasty continued through his brother. But there were some problems, some conflicts, and therefore there were some battles, but finally they managed to defeat their big opponent, who was a famous figure in the history of Iran, Amr Lais. So when Amr Lais was defeated, this Amir Ismail was almost dominant over all Khurasan, big Khurasan, northeastern Iran, and tried to conquer Gorgan, or Arabs called Jurjan, and Tabaristan, and finish Alaviyun, or Alavid government in Tabaristan, as I mentioned before when I said that we will talk later about Samani. So that was a problem for Alaviyun. And when Khalifa knew of his success, so he gave him a kind of new jurisdiction, so that he would govern all Khurasan, Tabaristan, Gorgan, and Jebal mountains. Anyway, Alaviyun had some characteristics that are mentioned in the book, including they were very religious people. They were very much acting out of religious responsibility and duty. They had no interest, in governance or, money or power. And they were happy to remain till they are killed and they become martyrs. But around them, there were people who were not like them. And maybe these Alaviyun sometimes were thinking that everyone is like them, but some of these people were only for worldly reasons. And therefore, it was possible that they would, telling them lie, they would, betray them. And also in the book it says that they were very honest and straightforward people. So sometimes they were deceived by the spies and the agents of Abbasids. Sometimes they were, telling freely their ideas, their plans, not knowing that Abbasids had spies and they were very closely monitoring them. Therefore, they were not able to continue for a long time. So as I said, it was from 250 till 316. Some of the outcomes or consequences of having this Shia family or this Shia, governance in Tabaristan was that they had some just system for people. People relax sometimes against the problems caused by central government, and some other Sadat joined them, some revolutionary people joined them. Daylamiyan, who were in another part of northern Iran, which is now Gilan, so like Rasht, etc. So these people became Muslim through Alaviyun, and therefore they entered into the political landscapes and socio-political landscape of the Muslim world. So in northern Iran, from Tabaristan and Daylam, Sayyids and Shi'as were very active. And then we had later other also dynasties like Mar'ashiyun, Sadat Marashi. They also established a governance there. They were very also interested in developing where they ruled. So they were making mosques, schools, and helping with books and education, welcoming scholars. So they were doing these things as well. And they were some of the rare governances that they were not receiving their legitimacy or sanction from the Khalifa, Abbasi Khalifa, because some of them, as I said, they were receiving appointments from the Khalifa, but they were independent. So the next dynasty is Hamdaniyan, or you can say Hamdanis. And this is with Ha, Hoti, not Ha Havas. It's different from Hamadan. Hamadan is a city in western Iran where Ibn Sina is buried. It's a historical city. That is different. This is Hamdaniyan with Ha Hoti. They ruled from 293 up to 391 after Hijrah. So for 98 years, almost a century, they ruled. Initially, they were in Darul Khilafa, in the capital, in Baghdad, and they had positions, although they were Shia, but they had positions in the Abbasid system. But then they were very, active and strong and, capable. So they started their own governance. And they have two main branches. One was Hamdaniyan of Mosul, which is now in Iraq. The other Hamdaniyan of Halab, which is now in Syria. They were, generally speaking, the book says they were very brave, eloquent, generous, and reasonable. Among them, there is one person who is very well known called Sayfuddawla. Sayfuddawla Hamdani. Many years ago, there was a documentary that Iranian TV had dubbed from Arabic into Farsi about Sayfuddawla. It was, I think, made in Egypt. So Sayfuddawla was very much involved in controlling Romans, because he was in Shamat, in Halab, and above them were the Romans, and they were very much looking for opportunity to attack Muslim land and conquer or harm, etc. So he is very much known for being very careful and protecting this side of the Muslim world, the borders on this side. Unfortunately, there were also some problems between Hamdanis and Buwayhids, although both were Shia, but there were some problems, and Romans used to benefit from this. Sayf-ud-Dawla used sword and pen. So he was a person who was very much interested in literature, but at the same time he was very strong in military. So he's a person of sword and pen, and used both to protect Islam and the Muslim world. It is said that Hamdanids, in particular Sayf-ud-Dawla, but Hamdanids in general, they were very generous in supporting efforts for Islamic and Arabic literature. They are considered to be Kathirul Ihsan. So when there were scholars, scientists, schools, students, they were encouraging them. Therefore, they say he is one of the people who can be considered as a kind of, sources of pride for Muslim world. And he managed to make Halab the largest hub for scientific and philosophical and also literature activities. In the book, there are some maps and pictures of Halab and the whole Muslim world at that time, territory of each of these dynasties. Towards the end of his life, Sayf-ud-Dawla became very ill, and therefore he was not able to take part in the battles. Therefore, from the year 351, Romans increased their attacks. They killed many people from Hamdanis, and they even took as captive one of the commanders of Sayf-ud-Dawla. And therefore then they killed many people, and they beheaded the captives, they looted, they took what they could carry with themselves, they burnt many things, they burnt masajid, they turned some mosques into stables for animals. So they did lots of mischief. They took advantage of illness of Sayf-ud-Dawla. And sometimes they were forcing Muslims to migrate. So this is a policy that existed more than 1,000 years ago. And the book says that Muslims were so much without support in that area, and the Khalifa was not able also to do something for them, or was not, keen, whatever. Sayf-ud-Dawla was ill, so Romans used to attack and loot and kill, and then say that we will come back, even threatening them that they will go back again. One of the writers, when he writes about cultural issues during Hamdanis, he says one reason for their progress in cultural affairs is that Sayf-ud-Dawla was very, broad-minded in cultural affairs. And he was also very careful, although he was Shia, careful not to do anything to provoke other Muslims. For example, Farabi, that we will talk about him inshallah maybe more, Farabi is a very great scholar, philosopher who was Shia. He was a musician. He's considered as second teacher, Mu'allim Thani. Aristotle was first Mu'allim, and he's Mu'allim Thani. So Farabi in his will had requested that Sayf-ud-Dawla would say prayer on his body. Because Farabi was Shia, Sayf-ud-Dawla was Shia. But Sayf-ud-Dawla, with some of his commanders, changed their clothes and said prayer on the body of Farabi without, explicitly showing this to other people, because there were people in his army who were not Shia, and he didn't want anyone to think that this is sectarian, whatever. He was very careful about these issues as well. So from 293 till 391, they were acting as a big support and protection for Muslim world, and in particular Baytul Muqaddas, against the Byzantine emperor, who wanted, Rum al-Sharqi, as we call it, Eastern Romans. And as I said, it's a time of development in culture, in literature. Many people who were experts in medicine, astronomy, philosophy, went close to them. They established libraries, and Darul Ilm. One of the things that in the 4th century, took place was establishment of Darul Ilms. They had before library and Baytul Hikmah, but then they had also this Darul Ilm, which had a library but was a place also for giving lectures and having scientific or literature-based debates and discussions. Okay, now we, alhamdulillah, completed this part. So we talked about Alaviyun, we talked about Hamdanis. Inshallah, next week we will talk about Fatimids in Africa from 297 till 567. For less than 3 centuries, they managed to rule in northern Africa. Shall we talk about them later? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.